Let me tell you something today that took me a long time to fully understand. And I wish someone had sat me down when I was 25 years old and said these words clearly, plainly, without confusion, without hesitation. I wish someone had grabbed me by the shoulders and looked me directly in the eye and told me what I'm about to tell you. Because if they had, my life would have changed not at 31, not after years of struggle and poverty and embarrassment and showing up to work every single day wondering why the results never matched the effort, but much, much sooner. So consider this your moment. Consider today the day that someone finally sits you down and tells you the truth. The truth is this: you will never outperform your self-image. You will never out-earn your self-concept. You will never build a life that is bigger than the one you believe you deserve. And until you change the picture on the inside, nothing on the outside will change permanently. You can get lucky, you can win the lottery, you can inherit money, but if you haven't done the internal work, if you haven't shifted the way you see yourself and the way you move through this world, then the money will leave. It always leaves when the person holding it isn't prepared to keep it, because money is not just currency. Money is a reflection of value, and value begins in the mind. Now I want to talk to you today about something that sounds simple on the surface but carries enormous depth underneath. I want to talk to you about the philosophy of acting as if. Acting as if you are already a millionaire, not pretending, not fooling yourself into financial irresponsibility, not going out and spending money you don't have on things you don't need to impress people who don't care. That's not what I mean at all. That's the shallow version of this idea, and the shallow version will get you into trouble. What I'm talking about is something far more profound, something that operates at the level of character, decision-making, mindset, standards, and daily disciplines. What I'm talking about is building the identity of wealth before the wealth itself arrives. You see, most people have the sequence entirely backwards. They say, when I get the money, then I'll start thinking like a rich person. When I get the house, then I'll start acting like a person of substance. When I get the business off the ground, then I'll start working with discipline. And they wait, and they wait. And they keep waiting because the money never comes to someone who isn't ready for it. The universe, life, the marketplace, call it whatever you want, does not deliver results to people who aren't prepared to handle those results. This isn't a mystery. This is simply how things work. Think about it. A farmer doesn't wait until harvest time to start preparing the soil. He doesn't wait until autumn to plant the seeds. He goes to work in spring because he understands the law of the harvest. He understands that what comes later is determined by what you do now. And your financial life works exactly the same way. What you do today, how you think today, the standards you hold yourself to today, the decisions you make today, all of that is planting seeds for a harvest that will come later. So the question isn't whether you have the money yet. The question is whether you are cultivating the right conditions for the money to grow. And acting as if you are a millionaire is one of the most powerful ways to cultivate those conditions. Now let me break this down for you, because I don't want you walking away from here with a vague idea. I want you walking away with clarity, with something you can put to use the moment you leave this room. Let's start with how a millionaire thinks, not just about money, about everything. Because wealth is not a financial condition first, it is a mental condition first. Show me a person's thoughts and I will show you their bank account. Show me what someone spends their mental energy on throughout the course of a day, and I can predict with reasonable accuracy where they will be 5 years from now. The thoughts are the blueprint. The life is just the building. A person of genuine wealth thinks in terms of value. Every single day they ask themselves, what value am I creating today? What am I contributing? What problem am I solving? What need am I meeting? They don't walk around asking, what can I get? They walk around asking, what can I give? What can I build? What can I produce? Now that might sound like a spiritual philosophy, and in some ways it is, but it is also the most practical economic truth in existence. The marketplace pays for value, period. The more value you create, the more the marketplace rewards you. And the less value you create, the less it rewards you. This isn't complicated. This is simply the law. So when I tell you to act as if you are a millionaire, the first thing I'm telling you to do is to start thinking in terms of value. Start asking every morning, how can I make myself more valuable today? How can I learn something new today? How can I improve a skill today? How can I serve someone better today? Because that is precisely how wealthy people think. They are obsessed with growth, not comfort. They are obsessed with contribution, not consumption. And they understand that their income will always be in direct proportion to the value they bring to the lives of other people. Now let's talk about how a millionaire speaks, because the language you use is incredibly revealing. The words you choose every day are not just communication tools, they are programming. They program your brain. They set the tone for your emotions. They signal to the world around you the level at which you're operating. And most people, without even realizing it, speak in the language of limitation, the language of lack, the language of excuse. I can't afford it. I don't have time. I'm not smart enough. I didn't go to the right school. I don't have the right connections. Things never work out for me. The economy is bad. The timing is wrong. Have you heard these words? Have you said these words? I certainly said them. In my early 20s, before Mr. Schoaf got hold of me and changed my thinking, I was fluent in the language of limitation. And those words were building a very small life for me, a very narrow life, a life with low ceilings and thin walls. Because the words we speak consistently become the walls of our reality. And when you speak small, you live small. A millionaire doesn't speak that way. A millionaire says, how can I afford it? How can I make the time? What do I need to learn? Who do I need to meet? What adjustments do I need to make? Notice the difference. It's not blind optimism. It's not pretending that challenges don't exist. It's choosing to respond to those challenges with questions that move you forward rather than statements that keep you stuck. The language of a wealthy person is the language of possibility, the language of personal responsibility, the language of solutions rather than problems. So starting today, I want you to monitor your language. I want you to catch yourself every time you speak in the language of lack, every time you make an excuse, every time you tell yourself a limiting story, and then I want you to rephrase it. Not to lie to yourself, but to redirect yourself, because the direction of your thinking determines the direction of your life, and your words are the steering wheel. Now let's go deeper. Let's talk about the standards a millionaire holds themselves to, because this, more than anything else, is what separates people of wealth from people who never quite get there. Standards, the bar you set for yourself, the minimum you will accept from yourself, the level below which you simply refuse to drop. Most people set their standards based on their current circumstances. I'm not making much money, so I guess I don't need to dress well. I don't have a big business yet, so I guess I don't need to be punctual. I'm not wealthy, so I guess it doesn't matter if I show up prepared. But here's what wealthy people understand. Your standards must precede your circumstances, not follow them. You must hold yourself to a high standard before the results justify it, not after. You must dress, speak, prepare, and conduct yourself as if you already are the person you intend to become. Because that standard, that consistent daily commitment to excellence, is what closes the gap between where you are and where you want to be. When I talk about standards, I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm not talking about pretending to be something you're not on the outside while neglecting who you are on the inside. I'm talking about genuine self-respect. I'm talking about the decision that you are worth investing in, that your time matters, that your word matters, that your appearance matters, that the way you treat people matters, because all of those things signal to yourself and to the world the level at which you're playing. Have you ever noticed that successful people seem to have an energy about them, a confidence, a presence, an aura of expectation? That doesn't happen by accident. It happens because of the standards they hold themselves to every single day. When you dress with intention, when you prepare before meetings, when you show up early and stay late, when you do what you said you would do, when you keep your word even when it's inconvenient, you build something on the inside. You build self-respect. And self-respect becomes the foundation of all genuine confidence. Not fake confidence, not the bravado you perform for other people. Real confidence, the kind that comes from actually knowing that you are a person who does what they say and says what they mean. So act as if you're a millionaire by raising your standards. Right now, today, not when the money comes, now. Because the money comes after the standards, not before. Let's talk about how a millionaire manages their time, because wealthy people have a fundamentally different relationship with time than everyone else. Most people treat time as though it were free, as though there were an unlimited supply, as though they could spend it carelessly now and make it up later. They give their time away to television, to gossip, to activities that produce nothing, to relationships that drain rather than build, to habits that consume rather than create, and then they wonder why they're not getting ahead. A millionaire understands something crucial. Time is the only truly irreplaceable resource. Money lost can be made back. Health lost can sometimes be restored. Relationships lost can occasionally be repaired. But time lost is gone forever. Every hour that passes is an hour that will never return. And if you treat that hour as though it doesn't matter, then you are making a very expensive trade. When you act as if you are a millionaire, you begin to protect your time with the same ferocity that a wealthy person protects their money. You become more intentional about how you spend your hours. You begin to ask, is this activity moving me toward my goals or away from them? Is this conversation productive or merely comfortable? Is this habit building something or slowly destroying something? And you begin to make different choices, not because someone is forcing you to, not because you're being rigid or antisocial, but because you understand that every choice about time is ultimately a choice about the kind of life you're building. I used to spend my evenings the way most people do, watching whatever was on television, going to bed without having learned anything new, waking up the next morning no better equipped for life than I'd been the day before. And the days stacked up into weeks, the weeks into months, the months into years, and the years into a life that wasn't going anywhere. It was the same life on repeat, just with more regret accumulating at the edges. Then I changed the way I use my evenings. I started reading, I started studying, I started attending seminars, listening to great thinkers, learning from people who had already built what I wanted to build. And slowly, the compound interest of daily learning began to pay dividends in my thinking, in my speaking, in my decision-making, in the quality of ideas I was able to bring to the marketplace, and eventually in my income. Because education always precedes income. Not just formal education, the education you give yourself, the books you read, the mentors you seek out, the disciplines you develop, the skills you sharpen every single day. Act as if you are a millionaire by treating your time as though it were your most valuable possession, because it is. Now let me speak to you about money itself, because we can't talk about acting like a millionaire without eventually talking directly about money. And here's the first thing I want to say. Wealthy people have a healthy, respectful, informed relationship with money. They don't worship it. They don't run from it. They don't pretend it doesn't matter. They don't feel guilty about having it or wanting it. They understand that money is a tool, a powerful tool. And like any tool, it does tremendous good in the hands of someone who knows how to use it, and tremendous harm in the hands of someone who doesn't. Most people have a complicated, often painful relationship with money. They want it desperately but feel guilty about wanting it. They spend it impulsively and then feel ashamed. They borrow it carelessly and then feel trapped. They avoid thinking about it because thinking about it makes them anxious. And this emotional confusion around money ensures that even when money comes their way, they don't handle it wisely, because you cannot make good decisions about something you refuse to think clearly about. A millionaire thinks clearly about money. They track it, they study it, they understand where it comes from and where it goes. They know their numbers. They make decisions based on information rather than emotion. And they understand the fundamental principle that underlies all wealth building: spend less than you earn, invest the difference, and be patient. Now that might sound too simple. You might say, Jim, I've heard that before. That's not a revelation. And you'd be right that the principle isn't new. But understanding a principle and living by it are two entirely different things. Most people understand the principle. Very few actually live by it consistently over a long period of time. And it's the consistent application over time that builds the fortune, not the occasional burst of discipline followed by a return to old habits. So when you act as if you're a millionaire when it comes to money, you start paying yourself first, not what's left over after all the bills. First, before anything else, even if it's a small amount, even if it's $5 a week when you're starting from nothing. Because the habit of saving, the discipline of always setting something aside, is more important than the amount when you're first developing it. You are training yourself. You are teaching your nervous system that you are the kind of person who builds, not just the kind of person who spends. And over time, as your income grows, the percentage you set aside grows too. And then one day you look up and you've built something real, something that didn't exist before because of 1,000 small disciplined decisions made over a very long stretch of time. Act as if you're a millionaire by developing a millionaire's relationship with money. Not a fearful relationship, not a guilty relationship, a clear, informed, disciplined relationship. Respect the money, learn about it, handle it wisely, and it will reward you. Let me now talk to you about the associations you keep, because wealthy people understand something about human energy that most people haven't fully considered. They understand that you absorb the attitudes, the beliefs, the habits, and the expectations of the people you spend the most time with. Not because you're weak, not because you lack individuality, but because we are social creatures, deeply influenced by our environment, and the people around you are part of your environment in the most powerful possible way. Jim Rohn will tell you, and I have told audiences this for decades, that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your income, your attitude, your ambition, your standards, your expectations, all of these will drift toward the average of your closest circle. That is not a guess. That is an observation drawn from years of watching people succeed and fail, watching some people climb and others plateau, and tracing the pattern back to the associations they kept. If you spend most of your time with people who complain about their circumstances, you will begin to sound like them. If you spend most of your time with people who are comfortable with mediocrity, you will begin to accept mediocrity. If you spend most of your time with people who make excuses rather than decisions, you will find yourself fluent in the language of excuse before long, not because you chose it consciously, but because association is the most powerful form of education, and it works whether you're paying attention to it or not. A millionaire acts deliberately about who they allow into their inner circle. They seek out people who challenge them, who inspire them, who are operating at levels they haven't reached yet. They place themselves near greatness not out of arrogance or social climbing, but out of wisdom, because they understand that proximity to excellence is one of the fastest ways to grow. So act as if you're a millionaire by being intentional about your associations. You may not be able to immediately remove everyone from your life who isn't serving your growth, but you can add. You can begin seeking out mentors, reading the biographies of great people, attending events where ambitious individuals gather, joining communities where growth is the expectation rather than the exception. You can begin placing yourself in proximity to the kind of people you intend to become. And as you grow, as you elevate, your circle will naturally shift. The people who belong in your next chapter will appear as you take the steps required to reach that chapter. This is not about being unkind to people in your current life. This is about being kind to the version of yourself that is waiting to emerge. That person deserves the right environment. Give it to them. Now let's talk about goals and vision, because a millionaire doesn't wake up each morning and drift through the day reacting to whatever happens to show up. A millionaire wakes up with a destination in mind. They know where they're going. They have clarity about what they want to build, what they want to achieve, what kind of life they are in the process of creating, and that clarity acts as a compass, orienting every decision, every action, every hour of every day toward a meaningful end. Most people don't have real goals. They have wishes. They have vague desires. I want to be rich someday. I want a nice house. I want to travel more. I want to be free, but they haven't written it down. They haven't given it a deadline. They haven't broken it into steps. They haven't committed to it fully. And a wish without a plan is just a daydream. Daydreams don't build lives, decisions do. When you act as if you're a millionaire, you begin to engage with goals the way a millionaire does. You write them down with specificity, not I want more money, but I intend to earn this specific amount by this specific date through this specific method. You review them daily, you measure your progress, you adjust your strategy when required, but you never abandon the destination, because the destination is non-negotiable, only the path is flexible. There's something powerful that happens when you write down a goal and read it every single day. Your mind begins to search for opportunities that align with that goal. It begins to filter out distractions and notice pathways that were always there but invisible when you had no clear direction. Your written goals give your subconscious a target to aim at, and the subconscious is a remarkably powerful aiming mechanism when given a clear target. But without a target, it just fires in all directions and hits nothing of consequence. A millionaire also has vision beyond their goals. They can see something in the future that doesn't exist yet, a business, a legacy, a contribution, and they hold that vision with such clarity and conviction that it begins to pull them forward. Vision is one of the most underappreciated forces in human achievement. When you can see something clearly in your mind, when you can feel what it would feel like to have achieved it, when you can describe it in rich detail, that vision becomes motivating in a way that abstract desire never can be, because motivation follows clarity. When you know exactly what you're working toward, the discipline required to get there feels meaningful rather than burdensome. So act as if you are a millionaire by developing the goal-setting and vision-building practices of a millionaire. Write down what you want, give it a deadline, build a plan, review it daily, adjust as required, and never let a single day pass without taking at least one step toward the life you have decided to build. Let me speak now about the willingness to delay gratification, because this is one of the most decisive characteristics separating wealthy people from everyone else. In a culture that increasingly celebrates the instant entertainment, instant delivery, instant approval, the ability to delay gratification is becoming rarer and therefore more valuable. And the people who can resist the pull of immediate pleasure in favor of long-term reward are the people who are building something that will last. A millionaire understands that every sacrifice made today is an investment in tomorrow. Every evening spent studying instead of watching television is a deposit in the account of future knowledge. Every dollar saved instead of spent is a seed planted for future harvest. Every difficult conversation had instead of avoided is a brick laid in the foundation of future credibility. And the compound interest of these daily sacrifices, these consistent acts of choosing long over short, builds over time into a life of abundance. Now I understand that delayed gratification is hard. Human nature is wired toward the immediate. We want comfort now, pleasure now, relief now, and resisting those impulses requires a kind of internal strength that must be developed deliberately. It doesn't come automatically. You have to build it, the same way you build a muscle, through consistent exercise, through putting yourself in situations that require it, through choosing the harder right over the easier wrong repeatedly until it becomes part of who you are. But here is what I want you to understand about this sacrifice. It isn't really sacrifice in the way most people think about it. When you truly embrace the vision of who you're becoming and the life you're building, the choices that look like sacrifice from the outside feel like integrity from the inside. They feel like alignment. They feel like you are being true to something that matters to you. And when a choice feels like integrity rather than sacrifice, it stops being painful and starts being meaningful. When you act as if you're a millionaire, you make choices based on where you're going, not where you are. You ask yourself before every significant decision, is this choice consistent with the person I'm becoming? Is this how a millionaire would spend this hour, this dollar, this opportunity? And gradually, those questions reshape your behavior. And that behavior, repeated consistently over time, reshapes your results. And those results reshape your life. Now let's talk about the relationship between risk and reward, because millionaires have a particular understanding of risk that the average person doesn't share. Most people are risk averse. They play it safe. They stay in jobs they don't love because the paycheck is predictable. They avoid starting businesses because they might fail. They never invest because they might lose. And they live their entire lives in a carefully constructed cage of safety that keeps out not just the bad things, but also the extraordinary things. A millionaire understands that the greatest risk in life is the risk of not trying, the risk of reaching the end of your life having never fully extended yourself, having never launched yourself into something that mattered, having never bet on yourself at the level that would require real courage, because that risk, the risk of a life unlived, a potential unrealized, a contribution unmade, is the most expensive risk of all, and yet it's the one that most people casually accept without even recognizing they're accepting it. When you act as if you're a millionaire, you cultivate a different relationship with risk. You don't become reckless. Millionaires are not reckless. They are calculated. They study. They prepare. They seek information before they act. But when they've done the preparation, when they've assessed the situation with clarity and reason, they act. They move. They commit. They don't spend 10 years planning what could be done in 1 year of doing. And when they fail, because everyone who tries fails at some point, they treat failure as tuition, not as a verdict. They extract the lesson, adjust their approach, and try again with more knowledge than they had before. Because a millionaire knows that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the process of success. Every great achievement has a failure story behind it, usually many failure stories. And the people who eventually succeed are simply the ones who didn't quit before they got there. So act as if you're a millionaire by developing a healthy, calculated, courageous relationship with risk. Be willing to bet on yourself. Be willing to try. Be willing to fail and get back up, because the life you're capable of living is on the other side of your willingness to move. Let me speak to you about health and energy, because this is something that is often left out of conversations about wealth and success, and it shouldn't be. A millionaire understands that everything else, all the ambition, all the strategy, all the discipline, requires energy to execute. And energy requires a body that is cared for, rested, nourished, and exercised. Your physical condition is not separate from your financial condition. They are deeply connected. When you are tired, you make poor decisions. When your body is neglected, your thinking becomes foggy. When you are sedentary and unhealthy, your confidence suffers, your creativity suffers, your ability to perform at a high level suffers. The wealthiest people in the world are typically very intentional about their physical well-being, not because they're vain, but because they understand that their body is the vehicle for everything they want to accomplish. And you don't race a championship car on low-grade fuel, so act as if you're a millionaire by taking your health seriously. Move your body, eat with intention, sleep enough, manage your stress, take care of the instrument through which everything else must flow. Because physical vitality is not a luxury you afford when you get successful. It is a foundation you build before success arrives, and it contributes to that success more than most people realize. Now I want to talk to you about generosity, because here is a truth about wealthy people that surprises many who don't yet have money. The wealthiest, most genuinely successful people I've ever known are also among the most generous. Not the ones who accumulate money out of fear, who hoard it, who define themselves entirely by their net worth, but the ones who build with abundance as their philosophy, who understand that giving is not a sign of weakness or naivety, but a sign of strength and confidence. A confidence that says, I know there is more where this came from. I know my ability to create value is not diminished by sharing what I have. A millionaire gives. They give their time, their knowledge, their resources, their encouragement. They understand that what you give away comes back to you in ways that are sometimes direct and sometimes mysterious, but always real. Not because of magical thinking, but because generosity builds reputation, relationship, and goodwill. And those three things are among the most powerful economic forces in existence. When you act as if you're a millionaire, you begin practicing generosity even before the resources are large. You give what you have. You share what you know. You encourage the people around you. You tip well even when money is tight, because that single act is a statement to your own subconscious that you are a person of abundance, not scarcity. You offer help before it's asked for. You give more in value than you take in payment, because the mindset of abundance, which is the foundation of generosity, is also the mindset that creates the conditions for more abundance to flow in. Scarcity thinking, the belief that there isn't enough, that giving means losing, that generosity is something you practice only after you're secure. This thinking keeps people in a contracted, defensive relationship with the world. And from that contracted, defensive posture, it is very difficult to expand. But from the posture of abundance, from the mindset of someone who knows that value can always be created and shared, and that sharing it doesn't diminish you, it becomes much easier to attract more. Because you're operating from a philosophy of expansion rather than contraction. Let me now speak about the daily disciplines that form the bedrock of every wealthy life. Because success, genuine success, is not dramatic. It is not the result of one great decision or one perfect moment or one stroke of extraordinary luck. It is the cumulative result of small decisions made consistently over a very long time. It is the result of disciplines practiced daily until they become so deeply embedded in who you are that you don't even have to think about them anymore. A millionaire has a morning routine. Not necessarily the same routine as every other millionaire. People are different, rhythms are different. What works for one person won't work for all. But the presence of an intentional morning practice is nearly universal among people of genuine achievement, because how you begin your day sets the tone for everything that follows. The first hour of the morning is sacred ground. Use it poorly, scrolling through other people's lives before you've even fully lived your own morning, absorbing news designed to agitate rather than inform, lying in bed negotiating with your alarm clock, and you've set a tone of reactivity, passivity, and distraction. Use it well, with intention, with movement, with study, with reflection, with the deliberate construction of your mental and emotional state, and you've set a tone of purpose, clarity, and momentum that carries through the rest of the day. A millionaire reads every day. Not social media, not headlines, books. The knowledge distilled by people who spent years learning something important, compressed into a few hundred pages that you can absorb in days. This is one of the great bargains in human civilization. That the wisdom of the greatest thinkers in history is available to anyone willing to sit down quietly and read. And yet most people don't. Most people haven't read a nonfiction book from cover to cover in years. And this is one of the reasons why most people's thinking stagnates, why their circle of ideas stays small, why they keep making the same mistakes over and over, because they never take in new information that might show them a different way. When you act as if you're a millionaire, you commit to being a student of life, a student of your craft, a student of success and philosophy and history and strategy. You read, you learn, you grow every single day, not when you feel like it, not when the schedule is easy, but especially when the schedule is hard, because those are the days when the discipline matters most. A millionaire reflects. They take time each day, each week, each year to look back, to assess, to ask the questions that most people are too busy or too uncomfortable to ask. What went well? What didn't go well? What did I learn? What would I do differently? Am I moving in the right direction? Are my activities aligned with my priorities? Is the life I'm building the life I actually want? These questions are uncomfortable sometimes. The answers are sometimes unflattering. But they are necessary, because without reflection, you can work very hard and very diligently in entirely the wrong direction and not realize it until years have passed. Act as if you're a millionaire by building the daily disciplines into your life that wealthy people consider non-negotiable. The morning routine, the reading, the reflection, the consistent action toward your most important goals, the investment in your physical health, the protection of your time. These are not complex practices. They are simple, but simple is not the same as easy. Easy would be doing what's comfortable and convenient. Simple means the principles themselves are straightforward, but executing them consistently requires genuine commitment. I want to talk now about persistence, because persistence may be the single most decisive characteristic of every millionaire I've ever known or studied. Not intelligence, not connections, not luck, not even talent. Persistence. The refusal to stop, the determination to keep moving forward in the face of difficulty, in the face of failure, in the face of circumstances that seem to conspire against you, in the face of the people who tell you it can't be done, in the face of the moments when you wonder yourself whether it can be done. Because the road between where you are and where you want to be is not a straight line. It never is. It has switchbacks and obstacles and periods of apparent stagnation where nothing seems to be working and you can't see the progress, even though the progress is happening beneath the surface. And in those moments, the people who quit do so with the harvest just around the corner. They plant, they tend, they water, and then in the moment before the breakthrough, they walk away because they can't see it coming. And they spend the rest of their lives wondering what would have happened if they'd stayed. The people who build fortunes, who build legacies, who build anything of lasting significance are the people who don't walk away. Not because they're superhuman, not because they don't feel the discouragement, the exhaustion, the moments of doubt. They feel all of that, but they feel it and they keep going anyway, because they've made a decision about who they are that goes deeper than how they feel on any given day. When you act as if you're a millionaire, you make that decision. You decide that your commitment to your destination is non-negotiable, that the obstacles are part of the journey, not not evidence that you should abandon it. That every setback contains a lesson, and that lesson is part of your preparation for the next level, and you keep going. There is a concept I want you to sit with. The idea that success is rented, not owned, and the rent is due every single day. You can never stop earning it. You can never reach a point where the disciplines that built the success are no longer necessary to maintain it. Because the moment you stop growing, you begin shrinking. The moment you stop learning, you begin losing relevance. The moment you stop doing the things that created the success begins to erode. This is not pessimism. This is simply the nature of a dynamic, ever-changing world. The standards don't drop just because you've reached a certain level. If anything, they rise, because with greater success comes greater responsibility, greater expectation, and a greater need for the disciplines that got you there. So this philosophy of acting as if you're a millionaire is not something you apply for a month and then abandon. It's not a motivational trick that you use in bursts of enthusiasm and forget when the enthusiasm fades. It is a way of being. It is an identity you step into and inhabit fully, and you inhabit it every day, in every decision, in every interaction, in every hour you choose to spend, and every dollar you choose to invest, and every person you choose to spend your time with, and every book you choose to open, and every goal you choose to pursue. You become the millionaire you intend to be by being that person now, at the level available to you now, with the resources available to you now, with the skills available to you now, not waiting, not holding off, not telling yourself that you'll start when conditions are better. Conditions will never be perfect. There will never be a moment when all the lights are green, when all the circumstances align perfectly, when all the reasons to wait have resolved themselves. That moment will never come, but this moment, this exact moment, the one you're living right now, this one is available to you, and what you do with it matters. I want to address something that comes up whenever I talk about this philosophy, and I want to address it directly because it deserves a direct answer. Some people say, Jim, isn't this just fake it till you make it? Isn't this just telling people to pretend? And my answer is absolutely not. There is a world of difference between pretending and becoming. When you pretend, you're performing for others. When you become, you're transforming yourself. Pretending is about appearance. Becoming is about character. Pretending is fragile. It collapses when circumstances get hard. Becoming is robust. It strengthens when circumstances get hard. I'm not asking you to pretend you have money you don't have. I'm asking you to develop the character, the habits, the disciplines, the mindset, and the standards of someone who does, because that development is what creates the conditions for the money to come. The money follows the character. It always does. Every fortune in history began not with the money, but with a person who had developed the internal qualities that made the accumulation of that fortune possible. The external results are always a reflection of the internal state. Change the inside and the outside will follow. This is not wishful thinking. This is not mysticism. This is the practical, observable truth about how wealth is built. Study any person of genuine wealth, anyone who built something from nothing, and you will find that the internal work came first. The philosophy came first, the standards came first, the disciplines came first, and the financial results followed those things in time. Now, a word about patience, because this process takes time. And in a world that promises overnight success at every turn, patience has become almost a revolutionary act. Everyone wants the shortcut. Everyone wants the strategy that bypasses the long, unglamorous work of becoming. And so they chase shortcuts, gimmicks, schemes, and systems that promise to compress years of building into weeks. And most of them end up back at the beginning, sometimes worse off than when they started, because they've spent time and resources on shortcuts that don't work. The path I'm describing to you is not a shortcut. It is the actual path. It is the path that, when walked consistently, leads somewhere real and lasting. It requires time. It requires years of work before the major results appear. But here is the profound truth about that time. It will pass anyway. 5 years will pass whether you use them to become a different person or not. A decade will go by whether you use it to build something or not. The question is not whether time will pass. The question is what you will have done with it when it does. And if you use that time to consistently apply the principles I'm describing to you today, to think like a millionaire, speak like a millionaire, set your standards like a millionaire, manage your time like a millionaire, develop your relationship with money like a millionaire, associate like a millionaire, set goals like a millionaire, delay gratification like a millionaire, take calculated risk like a millionaire, persist like a millionaire, then when that time has passed, you will be looking at a very different life than the one you're looking at today. And the extraordinary thing is that the journey itself is rewarding. You don't have to wait for the destination to start enjoying what you're building, because the person you're becoming along the way, more disciplined, more knowledgeable, more capable, more confident, more generous, more clear, that person is someone worth being right now. The becoming itself has its own satisfaction, its own dignity, its own joy. You don't need to wait for the fortune to start living with the vitality and purpose of someone who is building towards something meaningful. Let me leave you with this. Every single day, you are casting a vote for the kind of person you will be. Every choice you make, small or large, visible or invisible, is a vote. A vote for discipline or comfort, a vote for growth or stagnation, a vote for abundance or scarcity, a vote for the life you want or the life you've settled for, and those votes accumulate. They add up. They tell a story over time, and eventually that story becomes your biography. The choice you make today about how to spend your next hour, the decision you make tomorrow about whether to read that book or watch another hour of television, the standard you set for yourself this week about how you dress and prepare and show up, the goal you write down tonight and commit to pursuing with everything you have. These are not small things. These are the most important things. These are the raw material of the life you will live. You are not required to wait until you have the money to start living with the mindset of wealth. The mindset comes first. The disciplines come first. The standards come first. The character comes first. And the rest, the financial abundance, the opportunities, the relationships, the freedom, all of that follows the person you decide to become. So decide today. Decide that the version of you that has been playing small is no longer the version that gets to make your choices. Decide that starting from this moment, you are the kind of person who acts with intention, who protects their time, who invests in their mind, who manages their money with respect, who sets bold goals and pursues them without apology, who takes calculated risks, who persists through difficulty, who gives generously, and who holds themselves to the highest standard they are capable of, and then raises that standard when they've met it. Act as if you are a millionaire, not because you're pretending, but because that's who you're becoming. And if you do this, not for a day, not for a week, but consistently, relentlessly, day after day across the months and years ahead, one morning you will wake up and look around at your life and realize that you no longer need to act as if, because you will have become exactly the person you decided to become on this day. And that is the greatest achievement of all. Not the money, not the house, not the title or the recognition or the freedom. The greatest achievement is becoming someone who, through their own deliberate effort and daily discipline, took the raw material of a human life and built something extraordinary with it. That is what you are capable of, and I believe it with everything in me. Now go build it.